Yeah, today we're going to have an interview with our sponsor, Mr. Rizwan from Emerald Law. So he runs a law firm in Singapore called Emerald Law, specializing in a variety of things such as family law, what else?
Commercial law,
and
criminal law, so on and so forth.
So today I'm gonna ask him a few questions about how things take place in the Syariah court. Okay. Specifically, we want to talk about this concept of Mut'aah. Okay, that I think men and women might be familiar with. If you know anybody who has been involved in a divorce, you probably have heard of this Mut'aah law. It has been something that I think generally has been quite controversial lah. Okay, so maybe you want to start by explaining what is Mut'aah law.
So essentially, Mut'aah is a payment that the wife will receive from the husband upon divorce. So, and the problem is not whether this payment should be made. The problem is whether is she deserving of that payment.
Okay.
That's the direction taken by, in particular, men. But if we, before even discussing what people feel about this topic, right, I think we should go back to first principles lah. This point on Mut'aah is actually from the Quran. There is no doubt about that, right? Allah said, those who do good, give them a reasonable amount, some and so on and so forth.
After divorce lah.
After divorce and so on. But scholars have differed on this. Now, I'm not an ustad, so I don't want to get into the Islamic technicalities. But scholars have differed whether the Mut'aah should be given when mahar has been paid, or whether the Mut'aah should be given only if the marriage has not been consummated, and so on and so forth. So, for example, in the Maliki school, Mut'aah is not obligatory. Shafi'i school, there is difference of opinion, but the dominant view seems to be that it's obligatory.
Okay, so in other words, it's wajib for Shafi'i mazhab person.
That is the position taken by the courts as well. They're quite strict about it, that Mut'aah is wajib.
Okay, so they're saying that any man who divorces his wife has to pay this amount. And this is separate from matrimonial assets, right?
Separate from matrimonial assets, correct.
Okay, so I'm trying to understand the extent of justice for this thing, because I think many men don't understand like why is it that we already have division of matrimonial assets, I already divide my property into two and everything. On top of that, then why must we pay this extra additional money? And how come there's a calculation that seems to be just, you know, number of days that you're married times your like $5 a day, and then enter, and then this is the amount you pay. So it's like, of course many men are responsible. There are men who are responsible and good husbands, and so they are a bit puzzled. Why are they being punished in this way? So what would you say to such men?
So there are many parts to your question, right? I think the first thing is the paradigm from which we view this issue. We cannot look at, I tell this to husbands all the time. I've told it to most of my clients. I say, don't look at it as a punishment. The main thing for Singapore law is primarily when there is division of matrimonial assets, we look at contribution towards the family. Who take care of the children, who contribute to the bills, tuition, enrichment classes.
So this one is not Mut'aah, this one is division of matrimonial assets.
Division of matrimonial assets. So similarly, when it comes to Mut'aah, there is another principle. If you look at the older books, the classical books, they talk about Mut'aah being given to the wife because there is a stigma when it comes to divorce. To cover the shame. Mut'aah also, the English translation is consolatory gift.
Yes.
That's what the Malaysian Federal Territories Act and the Malaysian courts, the Singapore courts also call it. So it's a consolatory gift, something like a consolation to the wife. Like, you spent a certain number of years with me as my wife, and you've served me, and that is why. When I say serve, the word serve in today's context can be very controversial already. When I say serve, I mean serve from the Islamic sense lah. I don't want people to come at me with their claws, you see. So from an Islamic context, then we need to pay something lah, a reasonable amount which is fair for her. And people have gone back all the way to quoting hadiths and all that. And that, you know, when the Prophet ﷺ gave his wife the option to divorce, then he said, how to give them how much and so on and so forth. But we don't have an exact formula on how to calculate the Mut'aah.
And they say it's depending on the duration of the marriage.
Of the marriage, the financial ability of the husband. So generally, if the husband makes about 3,500, he's going to pay about $5 a day lah.
Okay.
So the problem, actually, what I realized talking to many men over the last close to 10 years, I don't think they have a problem with making the payment. I think they feel, okay, I can pay muta. There are two main gripes. One is how much should I pay?
Okay.
And second is, I don't think she's deserving.
Yeah.
And this happens especially when there is an affair.
Yeah, actually, I'm thinking about that because when you said consolatory gift, so okay lah, I understand. Let's say a husband divorces his wife. She is suffering. She's emotionally affected. She has served him all this while, and then suddenly she gonna divorce. Okay, I think in that case it's fair that there's a consolation, a gift out of his own goodwill. But what I think is quite strange to me, is that when the wife gets caught in an affair, okay, and there's video evidence. I heard about these cases. There's video evidence the husband actually caught the wife in bed with another man, and then divorce, and then he still has to pay muta. So what is this?
This is a very common question that I get asked also, and I have to tell husbands who call me and tell me that, oh, there's an affair. So they immediately have this idea I can get away without paying. So I have to break the news to them that, hey, no, you still have to pay.
I mean, it's quite strange for me to console her if she's the one who cheated on me, right?
Exactly. In fact, go a few steps back. Some Muslim scholars are also of the view that if the woman asks for divorce,
okay,
she cannot get muta.
That is huluk. That's a different kind of...
If she asks,
okay,
cannot get muta. But still there is a difference of opinion in the Malaysian courts as well. I mean, I'm not a lawyer in the Malaysian bar, so I will not talk so much about the cases there. But if we have a read, you will see that different courts in different states interpret it differently. Each state has its own act for Syariah law. And then they have the Federal Territories Act and so on and so forth. So their situation is a bit different. If you look at some 1980s Malaysian cases, you will see that muta'ah is not an absolute right. But sometimes now newer cases are saying the wife can still get, so long as there is no defect in the character. Then even when they talk about defect in the character, the word defect, this is the word that they use inside the books. So the word defect has to be something of a sexual defect. If it's any other defect, like, oh, I'm rude to you or I'm whatsoever, then it's not counted. But be that as it may, I want to add one point also. I think it must be fair to both genders, right? Because let's say, and I said this in one of my videos before, so that if the wife was loyal for 20 years and so on and so forth, and then at the 21st year she had an affair, and then 23rd year they divorced. So is it fair to deny her the muta'ah for the first 20 years? Okay,
so you see, this is where I think my opinion is where the contract comes in. Because the moment there's a breach of contract, what went before is immaterial, right? Because you broke the contract by cheating on your husband. So there's no question of what you did before, right? If you did good before, in Islam we believe Allah will reward you. But you broke a contract, right? So it's a difference between pahala and reward and
but even in contract law also, if you breach the contract, that doesn't mean whatever you've done before is forgotten, you see, in that sense. So I think when we look at it from a contractual perspective, if there is a breach, right, the condition on the marriage certificate, the contract, right, is actually a taklid, right? So if there is a man, no need to prove lah, he can just pronounce, right? But if let's say it's because of the lady and it's proven, then, but I still don't think that it's fair to deny her the first few years. In fact, there is actually one Sharia appeal report case in Singapore where it shows that when the wife left the house without any good reason, the court stopped the muta'ah from that day. In fact, I used it in an appeal. I don't know if you remember, but I used it in an appeal before at Mu'aah. In relation to muta'ah. So there's actually too much of difference of opinion in this matter. So I feel also it's not easy for someone to just take a decision that and say that is it absolute or not absolute. It really depends what school and so on and so forth. Like for example, we may be of the view that the courts always follow only the Shafi'i view, but if you read the appeal reports in Singapore, many a times they also use the views of other mazhabs as well.
Okay.
Imam Abu Hanifah, for example, and so on. And even recently, there was a case, I believe, if I'm not wrong, it's last year or 2 years ago. There was a case where the husband pronounced 3 talaq, and then the Sharia court decreed it as 3 talaq.
Okay.
Appealed to Muiz because they wanted it to be decreed as 1 talaq. So
Okay.
Muiz said 3 in one sitting. Not Muiz. They appealed to the appeal board lah. So the appeal board said it's just 1 talaq. So
Okay,
actually, the traditional opinion amongst the 4 scholars, the dominant opinion is 3 in one sitting is 3.
Okay.
That view that 3 in one sitting is 1 is actually the view of Ibn Taymiyyah, and he is in the minority.
I see. Okay.
Ibn Taymiyyah and others. So that's what I'm saying is that this actually muddies the water quite a bit, because if we are purely following the Shafi'i school, it's easy to decide how we want to form our thoughts and views on Mut'aah. What are the red lines we are going to draw here? But here we are taking a bit from here, a bit from here. That makes the whole situation a bit more complex.
Yeah, I think it's a. I think that's quite true lah. It has become a bit more complex because of the mixed match of views lah. And I find that in Singapore we as far as possible we try to believe the law is fair. We try to believe that the family court system is fair, and I think the family court system is actually very fair, and also the Sharia court system is fair. But a Muslim marriage and a non-Muslim marriage, when it's dissolved, right? In the family court, they have matrimonial assets division. In the Sharia court, they have the same matrimonial assets division. But then on top of that, they have this additional payment. So I'm thinking it's a kind of like double counting. Because in Islam, if you want to talk about divorce laws and muta payments, okay, fine, you compensate the wife. Then why are you bringing in matrimonial assets division? That's not in the Quran, or that's not in part of Islam. Isn't that double counting?
Yeah, okay. So at the end of the day, there are a lot of issues. Okay, and family law, these issues of taklid, fasaq, how the wife can get divorced, a lot of answers are not so clearly found in the hadith.
Okay, correct.
Like it's not very simple. It's all ijtihad of scholars. They created this framework in order to allow women to go and seek claim for divorce at the court.
Okay.
So it's not, I would say, so easy for us to just categorize it that way lah.
Okay, I understand. The other thing I was also thinking about is the amount of muta. So if I'm correct me if I'm wrong, but the calculation is like this. Let's say you're married for 4 years, and let's say you earn $5,000 a month. Okay, so they will take it as $6 times 365 days times 4 years. So you get something like maybe 15,000 or whatever.
Maybe
and it's okay, this
maybe
around there lah. So this is the amount that the guy has to pay. Okay, so what I have also heard is that, let's say the woman served the man for 4 years, but she cabut for 3 years. Let's say so for the man, right, you're only serving me for the 4 years. The moment you left, the moment you decided to leave against my wishes, you're no longer serving me. So why is it that the calculation takes 7 years times 365 days? Isn't it macam?
To me personally, I think if the court needs to investigate whether there was a valid reason for her to leave.
Okay.
And then if there is no valid reason, the mut'aah shouldn't have given. There is an appeal report case to that effect.
Oh, you've handled such cases?
There is. There is no. I have not handled it personally, but there is a case. I think sometime in the 90s, if I'm not wrong. Okay, there is a case like that. And there is also a recent case, an appeal which I did, where there was a written judgment by the appeal board where it stated that the mut'aah calculation insinuates to the extent that the calculation doesn't need to be so strict as a per day thing. They can look at it like if the wife gets a bit more from the matrimonial assets, maybe the mut'aah can be a bit lesser, and so on and so forth. So this is not something that is carved in stone.
Okay, in other words, the calculations are not done independently. So the mutlaq calculation considers
it is done independently, but at the same time there is nothing to say that it shouldn't be done holistically, for instance. So sometimes there are also positions where the wife waives off the mut'aah and iddah and so on and so forth if the husband is willing to just give her the house without asking for any cash consideration.
Okay. So easy settlement line in that sense.
In a way,
okay.
clean cut settlement. You know,
Okay.
you don't have to keep going back to court and so on and so forth.
Okay, okay. I understand. You mentioned about just now you mentioned about women having the right to leave. Okay. Okay, I understand if their life is under threat or some other the husband is violent physically or emotionally or what then okay, she has the right to leave. But who determines whether it is appropriate for her to leave? Because I from what I heard I mean in some views, if a wife leaves the house without the husband's permission, that is considered nusyuz already. Right? I mean, the husband is generally a decent man and the wife throws a tantrum and just leaves and stays with her parents. That can be considered as nusyuz. But I also understand the Syariah court would not be quick to label that kind of situation as nusyuz. No. Right?
And they are right. They are right in not being quick to label such a situation as nusyuz because we need to hear both sides, right?
Okay.
You have to hear both sides, see what they say and so on and so forth. And I think it's also giving too much of a burden to the judges or the courts for them to go and investigate each and every marriage, who is right and who is wrong. So often I tell people, when people speak to me, I say, don't have to talk so much about what she did to you or what he did to you. Just talk about who contributed. Like kids were sick, you went to the, you brought the kids to A&E. He was having beer under the block. Example, just take some wild example, okay? It shows that he has neglected, abdicated his duties as a father. Even though maybe he had a car, he could have driven them. Wife doesn't have license, for example. Just giving some examples. So I think it's going to be very, very difficult for us to go and decide, okay, the wife was valid or not in leaving, because nowadays, and we live in a modern society, right? Where even if you look at Women's Charter, violence is not just something physical. Violence can be mental abuse, harassment. So if let's say she feels
confinement,
harassed by the husband, confinement is confinement actually is quite serious because you lock the person, right? But let's say the husband keeps on abusing her, or the husband humiliates her in the house to the point that she feels like she's being abused. So we cannot play down mental perceptions, right? Because they are very, very important to how the court will look at the whole thing. So just because let's say the husband is a decent man and so on and so forth, but maybe it's too stifling to stay with him. Everything he controls. Why you go coffee bean and buy coffee? Got at home can just make
I see. Okay,
3-in-1. I bought from Malaysia a few packets. Why are you wasting money? So this kind of conversation you have daily until the wife feels that she's sick of this and she leaves the house. Then it's a bit hard for us to say that whatever also she should just tahan and go on. You see.
So am I right to say that the bar for nusyuz is quite high? The court implements a high bar for what is nusyuz?
I think the court doesn't put a very high bar on nusyuz because nusyuz is not a bar to mut'aah. So we don't even go into that discussion. We don't even take start off an investigation. Like, okay, for example, you look at criminal cases. Like first they need to get the facts right. Okay. If you don't get the facts right, how are you going to prosecute the person? The person was there or not? Where was he? However, for divorce cases, the court is not going to say, okay, let's start off by first seeing who is wrong. Okay, husband, you start. Wife, you start.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I think that's one of the misconceptions that many men have, because they always see it from the perspective of whose fault. Whereas the court sees it from the perspective of who contributed. What do you all do?
Who contributed to the children, the household, the couples, both, not just men, women also, both look at each other's fault. But however, I think divorce, right, we look at it too much on, maybe sometimes also it's a bit unfair the way we look at it, because men are quick to point out that the wife nusyuz. But where we fail in our responsibility is also a big something that we must look at, you see. And many men as well are not able to maintain their wives, maintain the children, provide for the family, keluar masuk. So these kind of issues are also something we must talk about. Like, it always takes two hands to clap. So I think parties should always try to talk about what is your responsibility at the end of the day. And I was told by a very conservative ustad, in Singapore, very conservative, who study overseas, and ARS,
Okay.
not non-ARS, ARS. So
The one important, huh?
Yeah, he told me it is not compulsory for the wife to cook for the husband. In fact, the husband should provide the wife with cooked food, not just bring back, buy mutton, chicken, come put, make for me, rendang.
I've heard that kind of opinion also.
And these are from conservative ulama, not even in Islam you have so many schools, conservative school, modern school. You might often say, the conservative school, they have opinions that actually restrict the woman. In fact, there is a lot of the conservative ulama even say that you should get a separate place for the wife, a separate house, so that the wife can have her own privacy. You cannot be living in a joint family, for example. I live in joint family, but I'm saying that's one view the ulama may have on the situation. So it's very challenging. It's very, very challenging.
Then, if it's so challenging, what advice would you give to men other than go to Emerald Law? What advice would you give to men and women?
Try to resolve the divorce case first. Talk to friends. Not every marital problem needs to end in divorce. When there is no choice and you really have made up your mind, then lawyers are there lah. And then there must also, I think, if I would have to give an advice, not just to men but also women, because I represent both. I represent women, I represent men.
Okay.
Yeah. One day I can be arguing that the father should get more access. One day I can be arguing that the father should not get more access. So it depends on the case I have. I do my best for the client. Okay.
But another day we talk about that lah, about access to fathers.
Another day. That one is an important topic which I think people need to know about. Okay. But my point is, you need to first ask yourself this question: how do I get a good court order? And not about whether I can get the cheapest divorce lawyer in Singapore, or how fast can I finish this case, or how do I get this case off my back. A lot of people have this idea where they call it macam mana nak file. They ask this question, macam mana nak file? I try online system keliru. And then after that they will ask you things like, berapa alamak, ribu mahal lah. So there is this unfortunate perception in the, I'm going to say this, it might sound a bit controversial, but never mind. There is somehow of an expectation that legal services must be free.
I mean, that one cannot lah. I mean,
this is a wrong perception, and if such a perception continues, and lawyers are forced to give everything for free, we want to help pro bono, low bono for those segments of the society that cannot afford or are less fortunate. We are happy to do. I go for legal aid clinics. I assist people on low bono basis. Sometimes I just ask them to pay disbursements, and I do the whole divorce, even for the squeezed class that cannot qualify for legal aid, but they really have no money. I assess, and on my own we say, okay, let's do it on a low bono basis. Maybe every month you pay me 100, 200. I had a client paying me like $100 for over 2-3 years.
Oh, okay.
So some people I allow, as long as I know, okay, they will
pay lah.
They will honor the payment terms, and I personally, from a subjective point of view, find that their case is genuine, then I will go out of my way to help them. But like how you would pay for your wedding, the ballroom, the caterer, the makeup artist, the DJ, the live station, and you pay for your honeymoon, you pay for your house, renovation, all that. When it comes to divorce, you also have to pay.
I think that's an understanding from the financial view of what divorce would entail.
A lot of people get very worried about that.
Of course.
You don't have savings.
But I think what I would like to see more lawyers do is try to tell them, and I think you also do that also sometimes. Try to tell the client, if you can settle by yourself lah. Right or not? If you can settle
you know why I say the problem is cannot settle by themselves. I tell you why. It's because they don't know the law.
Okay.
That is the big problem. So you want to settle yourself. Just take one example. Just talk about Mut'aah, since we'll be talking about it, right? You propose $3.
Okay.
Don't use you lah. You're happily married. Use another person. A and B.
Okay.
A propose $5.
Okay.
B propose $15.
Okay.
B feels $15 is fair because B doesn't know what is how Mut'aah is paid.
Okay.
A probably went to some legal aid clinic, lawyers, and he want to propose that amount, and the other one doesn't want to accept.
Okay.
So it's very hard to discuss. So even when trying to find a settlement, having a lawyer helps. Not all lawyers, in fact, I would say the vast majority of lawyers will assist people to come to a settlement if they want to come to a settlement. In fact, one of my colleagues was doing a high court case. Just on the day of the trial, the matter was settled. So there is a push to try and settle if you can settle, and don't fight unless it's absolutely necessary. Same thing for at mediation, we often try, but parties must be willing to accept. I remember one mediation where we told the wife, you can keep the house, get the Mut'aah, no refund, no need to give refund. Wife refused.
Oh, why?
She refused because he said she said, oh, my lawyer told me don't agree to anything. And
that's the thing.
Then I said, where is your
very
lawyer?
Very often I find that lawyers, some lawyers lah, maybe not everybody lah.
Just say some qualify yourself.
Some maybe just a handful. They kind of stand in the way of amicable settlement by telling the wife, hey, you can get this, you can get this. Okay lah, it's their duty to tell the woman or tell the man that you can get this, you can get this. But if it becomes something that exacerbates or aggravates the situation, makes it worse, then I don't know. What would you say about such situations?
Okay, in practice, so far, I have seen such situations where the other side is the opposing. My learned friend on the opposing side is a bit too, unyielding lah in that sense lah. And it's good to be unyielding to protect your client's case, but sometimes it's not worth fighting.
Yeah, that's the thing.
Sometimes it's just not worth fighting. You just say so. I think this goes back to the lawyer at the end of the day, that you must ask your client what your client wants. So some clients, children is the priority. So I say, if children are your priority, focus on that. Don't, for the sake of Mut'aah, go and affect your children.
Yeah.
If your wife willing to give you a certain amount, provided you pay her maybe more than market, and she's willing to say, okay, you want the kids, right? Thursday to Saturday, for example, take them. But I want the house, and I'm not going to give you any CPF refund. And you think back about it, you as a father, you want to build a bond and relationship with your children. Do you want to agree to it, or you want to go to court and fight? No, I will try to get all my refund. But then at the same time, you risk the outcome that the court may give you lesser days with your children.
I see.
So at the end, it's not always so legal, but it's also sometimes practical considerations. What do you want at the end of the day? What is most important? Money can be earned.
Yeah lah.
Money can be earned, but that relationship and time with the children, once lost is lost, you see.
Correct. That's the one lah. Yeah, so I think I don't know lah. I've heard stories lah about lawyers standing in the way of peaceful settlement.
I wouldn't say there aren't such cases. I don't know whether it's standing in the way, but maybe it's how we see it lah, right? Whether the glass is half full or half empty. So it really depends. Sometimes, like for example, if my client asks me, should I let the father see the child on the birthday, even though the court order doesn't say anything about it? Then I said, don't be so calculative. Birthday, the child, father also is his child also, right? Be happy lah. But at the same time, if the father is pushing and scolding her all sorts of vulgarity and saying, let me see a child now, then I also cannot tell my client, you should go and do it. I have to see her perspective. So I don't think it's always an issue of perspective at the end of the day. And I think that if somebody really wants to settle, the lawyer can't do much.
Yeah.
Somebody really wants to settle, lawyer can't do it, because you can just go and tell.
Yeah.
If let's say a client say, I want to rujuk, lawyer say, no, you must divorce. That lawyer will be an idiot. Sorry to say, but the lawyer will be an idiot.
I mean, I think if people want to settle, there's nothing lawyer can do to make them fight, for example. But I would imagine there are a group of people who are on the fence. Should I settle out of court? Should I engage lawyer? And then they go and see a lawyer, and then they hear all these things, and then that skews their decision. Okay, for sure I'm going to go for this lawyer, because the lawyer tell me I can get this. If I settle myself, I won't get this. But of course, these people don't do the calculations. They don't calculate that if you minus the legal fees, you actually get less in the end. So
the Sharia legal fees so far in the market is quite reasonable.
Yeah.
So it's quite reasonable. But at the end of the day, what people need to do is, like what you say, they need to do a cost-benefit analysis. It's not just from the monetary perspective, but also from the non-monetary perspective. Let's say the parties come to me. I have many situations. People come to me and tell me, okay, my wife and I have an agreement. Children will go to her, house will go to her. Then I say, are you getting back your CPF? Then he said, yeah, I think so. I said, has she agreed to give you back the CPF? Can she afford to refinance? And what if it's a BTO? Look, BTO is your, I don't know whether it's correct to say this, but I feel it's your first pot of gold in Singapore at least, you know. So you can sell the house and get a good profit, maybe 150, 200, 250. Easily you can sell 4-room flat and get that kind of profit. So when that cash consideration is so much, are you just going to transfer the house to the other party and not take back the cash and not take back the CPF? You lose so much.
Yeah.
Then how are you going to buy another house? Not everybody is so easy
That
for
one is
them
looking
to
out.
go to their parents' house.
I mean, that's something which I think lawyers should also do lah. Look out for the interest in the client and make sure they're not making any stupid decisions.
So I give you an example. One good example. Someone called me and said, I want to divorce my wife. And I said, okay, so what do you want? So he said, okay, I know the law. He a bit yaya lah. So he told me, I know everything. I've spoken to a few people, I've spoken to friends who got divorced. Say, okay, just tell me. Say, okay, I just want my house to be sold.
Okay.
I want to get back my renovation cost. So I said, okay, you want to divorce now? He said, yes, I want to divorce now. I said, if you divorce now, almost certainly there is a very high likelihood you won't be able to sell your house.
Okay, why?
Why? Because your house only 2 years.
Oh, okay.
Have an MOP.
I see.
You may need to surrender.
So effectively, he doesn't know the law that much.
Exactly. So you want to go and divorce, but your priority is to get the house, but you don't know if you start. So sometimes I tell the clients, okay, your house may be 2-year MOP. If that is your priority to get the cash because it's the first BTO and you need the cash maybe for something, maybe for rainy days or whatsoever, then hold on a bit lah. Why you take the risk? Obviously you can appeal to HDB, but quite a number of appeals we have seen, at least from an anecdotal perspective, for those cases that haven't reached MOP, usually not granted. You can do it with your agent friends lah, one podcast and then ask them what is their view. But what I see is quite a number did not get. Maybe there are who get. I don't have the full statistics, so I don't want to get POFMAT lah. You know, so that's the thing, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, quite interesting that you shared some of this. I mean, I hope men and women have a better and more educated, more informed understanding of the court system before they decide what course of action to take. And I think one thing that I find is also missing in this element of divorce is that in Islam, I think people, we are encouraged to remain amicable in situations as far as possible.
Principle of ihsan lah.
Yeah, principle of ihsan, amicable. No, don't fight so much. If you can settle outside, you settle outside. But I think what's also important is that I think many people don't realize the seriousness of going to court. Because when you go to court, you have to write an affidavit. And that is a sworn system. A sworn statement. That is a sworn statement, which means that you are under oath. And giving false testimony is one of the great sins in Islam. Right? And in the hadith, it is mentioned in the same sentence as murder, unfaithful to parents, and then false testimony. And you can imagine if people actually write a false statement and a sworn statement regularly for the purpose of making the other guy look bad and for the purpose of, let's say, getting money from the other guy. Women who do that have to know how serious it is.
I think both, not just for the woman. The woman who do that and the men who do that. So men who don't take care of the children but they say they take care, or they suddenly... I've seen cases where people message on a daily basis 5-6 times how the child take off Nishaydi or still coughing or not. But that messages were not there in the early part of the marriage. So I think from an Islamic perspective, one needs to see whether what I'm doing is fair or not.
Yeah, I mean, and also the seriousness of lying under oath.
In Islam, you shouldn't lie, because sometimes I have had cases, and I understand your point because when you spoke about people like being amicable, and then once they go and see lawyers, sometimes the egos awry. You see, for example, I've had a situation where the husband came to me very angrily and told me, before my wife went to see her lawyer, we were all okay. Suddenly she sent me the case statement, all sorts of things here which I never do. So I mean, there is a push by the law society, courts and all that on therapeutic justice, how we should not make the situation bitter.
Yeah.
Don't antagonize and so on and so on.
No fault marriage.
It's not good lah. Sometimes also it's about you know, what is the effect on the children? Maybe I just end with one example lah. I advised the client before. I gave him an exact, almost accurate prediction of how his case would end up in court.
Okay.
He didn't listen to me. He said, no, I have to do it this way, my way. At the end of the day, when he had a good offer in the middle of the proceedings, he refused to take it up.
Okay.
Towards the end, the situation was so bitter, he couldn't even see the children.
I see.
There was committal and so on and so on. But even committal proceeding, that does not mean your situation will be resolved, you know. And it's quite expensive. Obviously, if you can go on, you can go on. I've had a case where in the one party stopped, take the child and refused to return the child. Then we took out committal and we got leave to proceed at the family court. Then the other party returned the child.
I see.
But all this is expensive, it's unnecessary, and you make someone waste $8,000 to $10,000 doing this. The person is going to have this animosity against you forever. Like, you just wasted $10,000. I was supposed to use it maybe to buy a new car, or to go for holiday. It's expensive, so important also to save up.
Yeah, and I think also maybe the other thing also is for people to really understand that what you think is fair might not be the same as what the court thinks is fair.
Of course.
So this is why lawyers can actually help you to predict what's going to happen.
Correct.
Even though the prediction is beyond your imagination, lawyers know this is what's going to happen. So I think maybe that's
they
the
must
value.
listen, they must go, and the lawyers have a duty to explain in a concise manner, in a manner where they understand. They have a duty not to just want to tell the lawyer what to do. We are not the remote control. So they must understand, they must try to listen to us, understand what's the situation. A lot of times, I'm explaining to the person is asking me another question.
I see.
Totally unrelated. I say, hold on, listen to me first. Don't mind. Listen to me first, let me explain. Because you start off, you say, Mut'aah, how can $5? I have a friend who got $8. I say, your friend married somebody who probably is making $6,000 to $7,000. I'm telling you, you get $3 because probably your husband is in prison. So you cannot just compare. My friend say this. This is the biggest problem I feel is when relatives and family get involved. Sometimes we always think, right, that when family get involved, you can try to resolve the situation. And from an anecdotal perspective again, whenever family get involved, the situation worsens. I have seen situation worsen because they take sides, they go there, they try to say, you never do this, you never do that. It's a bit difficult.
So very often the advice is not only lopsided, it's also misinformed.
And they also feel that, you know, it's wrong. Like, for example, if a woman comes to me with her brother, she will argue that it's not fair for my sister-in-law to get so much in Mut'aah. But if she comes back to me as somebody who wants to divorce her husband, she will ask for Mut'aah with the husband. So again, I say it's always perspective, right? When it involves our loved ones, we will be more tender, we'll be more willing to consider alternatives and so on and so forth. So we cannot be biased lah, you know, and we must also understand that just because you disagree with the system doesn't mean you are right. You don't have to agree with the system, but that doesn't mean your view must be taken into consideration by the court, because your view may be utter nonsense.
Which is why I think maybe we can end off here. I think what's important is that anyone, court users, men or women, and family members who go through it, I think it's very important to get an to make informed decisions, to know how the court operates, and to maybe speak to people who have gone through it and assess if the person is actually objective and fair in how they assess the court system. Because I think that goes a long way. Because from what I see, more often than not, people are aggrieved by the outcome. It doesn't meet their expectations, and then everybody becomes unhappy as a result.
Court case, generally one person will be aggrieved by the outcome. That is unfortunately the nature of the adversarial system, which they are trying to change. We are trying to move away from the adversarial
to
system
the no-fault divorce
that we inherited from the British and so on and so forth.
Okay lah. InsyaAllah one day we talk about the case.
InsyaAllah.
Okay. Assalamualaikum. Bye.